Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Britain's arms deals with Saudi Arabia have long been a source of contention. Many accuse the country of using those weapons to commit war crimes in Yemen, a country now described by the DEC as at breaking point. Earlier in the year, we revealed that a report by a parliamentary committee into Saudi arms sales was watered down to be less critical of the Saudi regime. Now, this programme's learned the committee with oversight into those deals faces collapse. Who scrutinises the arms deals then? Our political editor, Nick Watt, has brought us the story.
The vexed question of British arms exports has been brought into sharp relief by the conflict in Yemen. Britain is continuing to supply arms to Saudi Arabia, which has been accused of violating international human rights laws as it supports the Yemeni government in fighting Shia rebels.
Over the autumn, details of a dispute amongst senior MPs over the arms sales were leaked to Newsnight. The Committees on Arms Export Controls, a giant body comprising MPs from 4 House of Commons select committees, split down the middle.
You were party to material being improperly leaked out of the committee proceedings, which obviously with a complex committee structure made the conduct of the committee and trust on the committee to be actually be able to a place where you can actually thrash out the issues at stake without them being relayed contemporaneously out to the media, producing a very one-eyed view and with on a single issue without the ability to consider the whole situation in the round, made the work of the committee in effect impossible.
One group called for the suspension of arms sales amid concerns about possible human rights violations by Saudi Arabia. A second group of MPs said it would be wrong to cut off supplies before definitive evidence emerges of the deliberate targeting of individuals. Another group backed neither side. The row has now effectively killed off the committee after the impasse meant they could not produce an agreed report.
The Foreign Affairs Committee is formally of the view that with the machinery government changes, we're in that sense off the hook with a quadripartite committee. It makes complete sense for the new Select Committee on International Trade, which oversees the Department for International Trade, within which arms export licensing is going to sit, that they should oversee the exercise now.
One member of Crispin Blunt's Select Committee disagrees.
I've got the greatest respect for Crispin, who's been a very good chair of our committee, but I'm afraid on this particular issue I don't share his view. I think that arms control is a very particular issue. It goes beyond just trade. We need to take into consideration human rights, foreign policy, development, a whole range of issues that need to be taken into for what is a very particular set of issues.
Members of other select committees also have concerns.
We obviously know there are individuals who are not happy with the proposal to suspend arms to the Yemen. We've seen the government, despite the Foreign Secretary's comments in recent days, now rolling back on those and taking a very pro-Saudi Arabian line. And the fact is we still haven't got answers on those allegations of atrocities against civilians. And it seems to me that we need a strong committee to hold the government's feet to its fire, and that requires the participation of all of its 4 constituent committees.
The current chairman of the Committees on Arms Export Controls, otherwise known as CAIC, whose draft report called for the suspension of arms to Saudi Arabia, appears resigned to his fate.
There needs to be scrutiny of arms sales, arms exports, and I think CAIC was a very good format for that to happen. And in whichever department that will fall under in the new Parliament, in the new way of the new departmental structure, I think that we need to make sure that some form of CAIC exists.
Newsnight has learnt that a new structure has almost been agreed amongst MPs. The new International Trade Select Committee, overseeing the work of Liam Fox's department, will take the lead in overseeing arms export licences, with members from other select committees contributing, though in a less formal way.
The model is not yet set. We might see people being seconded to another committee, of a CAIC-type structure from other committees that are going to overview this, or perhaps we'll get some seconded along with the International Trade Committee at moments where we're looking at international arms sales in particular. The model is open at the moment, and consulting with colleagues, see what they prefer, see what their ideas are, and then we'll, inevitably as Parliament does, we'll all arrive at some conclusion at some point.
Angus MacNeil insists human rights will still be one of his main concerns as he scrutinises arms export licences.
I have a dual role in Parliament, and in this particular case I'm obviously the chair of the International Trade Committee, but I'm also an SNP MP, and I think if there's any role of undermining or downplaying the human rights aspect, I think within the SNP and the SNP membership widely in Scotland, I would have my collar felt very, very strongly. So no, that will not be happening. I can most certainly guarantee that. Not least the voice of Nicola Sturgeon might be quite strong there too.
Boris Johnson's recent warning that Saudi Arabia is fighting proxy wars in Yemen will guarantee a strong focus on UK defence sales. But parliamentary oversight of arms export licences will soon be largely in new hands.
Nick Watt there.
I've been getting